Assalamualaikum everyone. Welcome back to another Islam podcast. This time on the Wednesday, but nonetheless, we're excited for a very interesting and fun discussion after a extremely intense, extremely entertaining quarterfinals, both series. And today here we have a couple of panelists along with me. So our first guest is another member of the OC. We have Mr. Ahmed Mobeen. Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam. Great to be here.
Yeah, so Mobeen was able to catch a lot of the games, and we'll be able to kind of just talk about all four of the entertaining games as well as the overtimes and one shootout. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce our second guest. It's none other than Fahad Mohammed. Assalamualaikum, Fahad. How are you doing?
Hey, welcome, Slam. Thanks for having me. Good to be back.
No, it's good. It's good to see you. And you were at the hangar on Friday, and you kind of, I think, got all four games. So I
I
think
didn't
you
catch
might
the
have a.
last one. It got too late for
Eh,
me. I had to get home.
that's fun. That's fun. But you caught enough of the action. And for the viewers watching that don't know Fahad, he's actually an MVP or not. He's a GM of a championship winning team. For the I was actually on that team as well, the Yakin Fall 2023 team. So yeah, it's good to have you on the podcast, and inshallah, for next season, I believe you're playing as well. So
Yeah,
it's
inshallah,
good to
can't
have you
wait.
back.
Yeah, fun fact you have two former goalies who got sick of carrying the pads every week.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
that's
much what
true.
it
That's
is.
true. Fahad will be a player next season, and Mobina as well. So yeah, we have a lot to uncover in this episode of the podcast. So we'll jump right into it. But first and foremost, starting with the 8 o'clock game, it was Rida versus Haya. This series kind of going in was a very. It looked a very kind of even series, and the night really spoke for itself. Imad Kawaja started the game, or he gave Haya the lead actually right before halftime, and they kept that lead all the way until almost a minute left in the game, where Zahir Ghazi, was available in the front and tuck it away top shelf on Hamza Butt. So Fahad, what was your kind of recollection from the game, and what really did you kind of see go on in game one?
It felt like a true playoff game. It was pretty gritty. At least game one was played between the blue lines. There wasn't a lot going on. Both goalies made some pretty key saves. But like you said, it's a low scoring 1-1 game. I think Haya in this game, and then you'll see in the next game as well, didn't put away Rida when they could have. And Rida just, I think I heard there, because I haven't seen a lot of games this season, but I heard their second half team, they always come on in the second half, and they did that in both games. And yeah, they hung in there. I allowed them to stay in there, and they eventually got the tying goal, and that was what they needed in the game, in the first game. Both teams tied, and they had the one game to win in the second one.
For sure. Mobeen, did you kind of catch this game, and what were your kind of your thoughts surrounding this?
I actually I actually caught the last part of the second half, and to be honest with you, like the week leading up to this game, I actually expected Haya to handle Rida pretty easily. So when I came to the rink and I heard it was a 1-1 tie, I was really shocked. Um and to be honest with you, you can't lose a series in the first game, but it really sets you up well for the second game, how the first game goes. So the fact that it was a 1-1 tie, it was kind of a win for Rida because now they have belief that they shrunk the series from 2 games to 1 games, and now they have a belief that all we have to do is just win this next game and we win the series. So, um, yeah, it was a huge shock seeing Rida actually tying the game, ending the game on a tie, and I think it set them up well for the second game of the series.
Yeah, for sure. And so I played on this game in this game. It was a very back and forth game, and it almost felt like in that second half, we had a lot more of the ball, but we weren't able to put it away. Hamza Butt played a really good game. Kind of watching back the footage, Suf had like a game-saving save where he like dived in front of the ball. With Zahir had like an empty net or like a one-timer with like 10 seconds to go, blocked it with his back. And Haya really put the body on the line. Luke was saving shots, Suf was saving shots, Arsenal was blocking shot, like everything. Imad, like their defense really, really led this game. And it was a very, very close game, and eventually ended in a tie. And it wouldn't be the first tie actually of the night. Yeah, with that, we'll move into game one of the other series. It was third place Ihsan versus sixth place Ikhlas. So yeah, with that, we really saw a back and forth interesting game between the two teams. A lot of people actually in the WhatsApp group poll moving into this week, we saw a lot of people favoring Ihsan and said, even before the game, Ihsan's gonna handle Ikhlas comfortably. And to a lot of people, it was a lot of people surprised when they found out that game one was 3-3. So I believe the game started with an Ahsan Zaidi goal. He was in the slot, got free and really tucked it away. And this team is a very young team, but you can see Ussin's leadership throughout the series and throughout the whole season. They really rally around him, and he's able to motivate the younger team with his leadership presence. So, Mobeen, did you kind of what did you really see during this game?
So I caught this full series, and I'll say just overall the first this first game you could feel the tension. There was not that much space out there. People were either very nervous from the players and to the goalies. Plays that you expect them to make, they were just turning it over, coughing it up in the neutral zone. To your point about Essence 80, like when he would score, you could see like how happy their bench was. The crowd was going crazy, like, oh, the legend has scored. I will say there was one controversial goal from Isan that it looked like the net was off, but in that moment, if I had to make an unbiased call, like you can't expect the ref to call that. I mean, the goalie knocked it off himself, and then there was space there for him to tuck in. But to your point, Abdullah, the fact that it was a tie game, that was the biggest shock of the night. And again, going back to what I said about game ones, this actually gave Green the belief that we could pull off the upset here.
For sure. Fahad, what were your thoughts kind of seeing? I know you didn't really catch during the regular season, but just seeing the two teams kind of walking out, you're seeing the legendary Ihsan team with kind of Islam legends, and then the young, up and coming younger Ikhlas team. What was your thoughts of you know the series?
Yeah, I mean, overall, when I was there watching and talking to some of the guys, the one thing I mentioned was there's a lot of youth in the league now. It's super fast. Even so, I'm coming back playing as a defenseman, and first I was second guessing myself for a minute because I'm like, I don't know if I can keep up with these guys anymore. It's a pretty young and fast league, and I think game two kind of embodied that a little bit. Unlike game one, which is more of a defensive, played between the blue lines, the second game was more run and gun, more physical, pretty fast paced. You can see why Hassan would be the favorites. They have a lot of big names on that team, and I think they control a lot of the play. But Ikhlas, they did what they had to do. They matched some speed for speed. I There was a lot of important penalty kills. I don't know if it was the first game or second game, but I think the youth hung in there, and with their speed and their tenacity and just their sort of excitement for the game, they matched Hassan toe to toe, and you could tell. But both games were a tie because both games they had kind of like a similar thing going at each other.
For
I
sure.
will add, Abdullah.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
no
will
worries.
add. This was a class's first time in the deep end of the pool, and they did pretty good because I remember coming up to you during the game. It's like, hey, what happened to your uncle? Did he not show up for the game? And like, and then you're like, what do you mean? He's right there. I'm like, I legit did not notice Ali Wadi was playing. That's how effective Ikhlas was. And then I talked to another member of Ihsan, and they're like, "Yeah, I felt that Risk Clear and Ali Wadi didn't have the best of game ones." So, um, yeah, it goes to say that Ikhlas really did well for their first time in the Iceland playoffs for game one.
Yeah, for sure. And I think seeing them come back from multiple deficits, they tied it at two. They and then with like I believe in the last minute, Yusuf Mohammed was running to the bench, or he was actually on the bench, and they tied it up with with the Tahir Bungish equalizer rebound in front. Also assisted by Asin Zaidi, 3 points today or in that game. Really kind of pushed Ikhlas and really showed the rest of the league that these guys were a force to be reckoned with, because there were a lot of guys on the sidelines after that first game saying, I think Ikhlas is going to run away and steal this and is going to go for that Cinderella run, because, even talking to Arcel, who was the, goalie for Yakin, he was like, even Ikhlas, and even though they're the sixth place team, it would still be, really hard to face them because of their speed and their kind of hockey IQ. And,
And I know, like
yeah.
at that point, like Yakin has at that point can pick their opponent. And honestly, it didn't seem like anyone would be a good pick because they were all playing very well, and it went down to the wire for both teams for a reason because everyone was so pretty evenly matched.
For sure.
Honestly, if you use the regular season as a gauge, you'd be deeply mistaken because Isan did beat a class 6-1. But when you came to the rink on Friday, you didn't realize which team won 6-1. Like they were pretty evenly matched in this game. Well, obviously, the score shows that.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, another tie actually in this game. This is the game two between Haya and Rida. So it also ended in a 1-1 tie. It also ended with Zahir Ghazi. In game two, at least, Zahir Ghazi tied it up with 1 minute left. Pretty similar goal to how he tied it up in the first game, where they left him alone in the slot. And it was just that split second where he was able to curl and move away, and he sent it 5 hole on Hamza, but I believe it hit off one of the Haya defenders along the way. But Haya took the lead with 2 minutes left, and honestly, being honest, like on the Rida bench, I thought, okay, this is it. We're gone, and we didn't really give up. We kept taking shots, and Zahir, led by example as a GM of Rida, tied the game up with 1 minute left, and sent us to overtime. Where he eventually got the overtime winner as well. So he scored all three goals, on Friday for Rida. But this game, I think this game too was another bad. I don't know if there were any major penalties. I think maybe there could have been a couple of trips, but overall, it just felt that both teams were really going for it, and it's really kind of what you want to see in a playoffs, especially if from a league standpoint. Seeing the competitiveness. Coming out to watching playoffs and seeing one team just get blown away both games, versus coming out and just seeing an absolute, bloodbath. It was really nice to see kind of from the league standpoint. And I'm curious to see, Fahad, what were your kind of thoughts on the overtime play and the rest of the game actually.
I mean, I don't envy the people who have to go back to back with those kind of intense games. When it's a blowout, you can maybe relax a little bit. But I think from what I saw was this game came down to more goaltending than anything. I think the experience of Yusuf Kapoor and the maybe inexperience of Haya's goalie Hamza, I think, showed a little bit. Haya came out pretty strong in the first period in the second game, and Kapoor made some incredible saves. I mean, he was really on top of it, more so than even the first game. But it felt like Hamza, maybe because of what was on the line in the second game, he was a bit more. He didn't get tested a lot early, but in the second half, as Rida did what they do, they started coming back in the second half. He seemed a little bit okay. No, he's probably newer at this. I don't know how many playoffs he's had before, but but Yusuf Kapoor, I think, was the reason, and they won. And like you mentioned, Zahir Kazi, he was their main guy. He showed up for both games, and for Haya, I mean, guys like Maz Haq, even though I think he played much better in the second game, you have to put goals in, you have to put points up, and I think Yusuf Kapoor really bailed him out. And I think same thing happened in the second game where Haya didn't put him away with that second goal. They could have put him away, maybe the second and third goal. Rida just hung in there, and eventually they scored late. I think with 2 minutes to go, and yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. Maz actually could have had right after they scored the first one, he went on a rush and almost he went around the goalie and he tried tucking it in last minute on Yusuf, and I think it was like a centimeter away from crossing the line before the whistle blew. So it almost ended 2-0 for Haya. And so I guess it really is a game of inches. Mobeen, what are your what did you see, and what are your kind of takeaways from this series?
Well, first of all, Abdullah, it's kind of a cute story you're trying to portray to the audience that it was a back and forth game. I mean, from what I saw, it was kind of Haya taking it to Rida and Yusuf Kapoor. I mean, we're goalies, we will have to support our fellow goalie, but it was actually Yusuf Kapoor, the story of the game. He kept it a 1-0 game for the longest time. There's one save where he was down on the ground. He made like a scorpion save with his left leg. Like it was just ridiculous the amount of. And then there's another save where like he did the splits and robbed the guy in the slot. Like the amount of quality shots Haya had, it looked to me that he was started to get into the highest player's mind because they started shooting a little bit wide because they're trying that extra effort to put one by him, and they started missing the net. So, really, this game should have been the first star should have been Yusuf Kapoor because without him, it's probably a 5-1 game or 5-2 game. Um, I will say I do agree with Fahad that the difference did come into goaltending, where the inexperience of Hamza kind of showed at the end. He was good for I'll say 98% of the game. It was just that last 2 minutes where Rida tied it up. It was a backbreaking goal, and from there Rida didn't look back. I mean, Haya was on the back foot the whole time, and then eventually Zahir got the game winner. So
and,
um,
and
you
that's
have
how
your
we
goalie to
learn,
thank
right?
for
I
this
mean,
one,
Hamza's gonna learn that way, right? I mean, we've been there,
right? I
Mobeen, you've
mean,
been there. He's
yeah.
Yusuf's done this like 100,000 times, probably been in the playoffs and played big games. So you could see, and like you said, there's a lot of scrambles in front of the net, a lot of second, third chances, and I don't know how he was doing it, but he was right on top of it.
For sure. I
Yeah,
think yeah, we were really kind of, like at that point, we were really, really reliant on Yusuf. And I think the whole season, the Rilla story has been not enough shots. We actually set the record, I think, for least amount of shots in a game this season. Mind you, we only had like one guy on the bench that game, but still, we haven't been really taking as many shots or as many quality shots as we need to. And our scoring has been the story as well. And only scoring a goal in both playoff games, in a do or die series is definitely not enough, and it definitely won't work, against, our next semifinal opponent. But before going in, we actually have a video that we'd like to play of the overtime winner. So this was actually
before we
filmed
do
by,
that, though,
oh, yeah,
before
for
we do
sure.
that, I want to give a. I definitely agree with you, Fahad. Hamza will learn from this, and he'll actually become a better goalie from this experience. The only way to get experience is to get experience. And I also want to shout out Luke because he made like about 5, 7 block passes, block shots before that game winner. So, and he was just a beast on the defensive end.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think without the leadership of Luke and Suf on that team, I think it could have been a very different story. But the higher hustle really does play into effect. And I had the privilege of playing on Luke's team last season. And yeah, I'll play the overtime winner now. This was actually filmed by Asim Patel, our scorekeeper. So yeah, he went away from scorekeeper duties to get us this inside the ring angle.
Get back, get back.
So yeah, I think we really, like, from the bench, seeing that the minute he got open, after scoring the first two, we really thought, okay, this is it when he's gonna do it. And but just that shot and the quick release from Zahir is really kind of what really propelled us to the semifinals. And yeah, it was great to see.
I will say though that of course the shot is what's focused on, but it's just little plays that add up. So you saw Moss had a chance just to clear it off. He decides to pass it up the middle, but before then you see Altaf, instead of allowing Moss to come out, he pressures him to cause that turnover. So it's those little plays that win a game at the end.
For sure. And yeah, it was, I think those little plays definitely in those big moments, are what separates the two teams. So moving into the fourth game of the evening, this was again another tie, and also the third 1-1 tie of the night, game two. Ikhlas led for majority of this game with the goal from none other than Asin Zaidi, who with this goal is actually leading the playoffs in points. 3 goals, 1 assist in 2 games for his team. He got 3 in the slot, tucked it away past Josefa Mahida, and the seller, like the roar from the Ikhlas bench, like I thought, like you know, it was a really nice, like it was something really nice to see, especially from the stands. Like the whole team was just so ecstatic, and yeah, it was a great a great game, great, and seeing one of your veterans, one of your leaders score, it really uplifts the team. And Yusuf Mohammed, I think he was the player of this game by a mile. He stood on his head and was saving everything in the game and in overtime. In overtime, there was a 2-on-1 between Sani and Riz. Sani got a pass in the slot, and he stretched and made an amazing save. All of us from the stands were like banging on the boards and giving him a big shout out. But Ali Wadi did end up just managing to score with four
Oh, there
minutes
he is. He did show up.
Yeah, he did show up in the second game, and so he did manage to score with 4 minutes left in the second half. Really, it was a shot from the blue line along the ground, and it squeaked through Yusuf. Like it didn't even make it to the end of the net, back of the net. It like barely crossed the line, and that's kind of just the goal that got Isan back in the game, and eventually allowed them to win in a shootout. Um,
Well, I mean, it's a goal that saved their season.
yeah, for sure. And so, we have two leaders, Asin Zidi for his team, Ali Wadi for his team, finding the back of the net in this game. And Fahad, I know you missed it, but Mubin, what did you see was the difference maker for Ihsan, to get them?
Well, first of all, I want to acknowledge that Eclas was a serious threat in this game to moving on. I mean, they led for most of the game, and it looked like they were going to pull off the colossal upset. And in the end, it was a class's youthful enthusiasm versus Essan's veteran leadership. So even though they were down by 1 goal, they didn't panic. Even though their season was slowly ticking away, you saw the veteran come through in the clutch, and then from there it just became a game of who could hold their nerves better. And you saw in the shootout, um, they were just more calm and poised. That they've been there before. They know what to do. Where the younger team, it felt like they let one slip away. They felt like they should have won, and they weren't able to make that switch. Like it's in the past, we had to forget about it. We had to move on. Where Red was like, yeah, we've been here before. We played in many tournaments. We played in many leagues. We know what to do, and they went out and they executed in the shootout.
Yeah, for sure. I think with the shootout, so Mikhail Zaidi scored the first goal for Ikhlas, and so did Osman Batar. And then the second shot, which ended up being the game winner, was Dawood. And then a couple misses from Ikhlas to really win it for Ihsan. So we actually have the Dawood shootout winner that we'd like to show as well. So yeah, this ended up being the game winner. He kind of walked in very comfortable. I think Dawood is no stranger to being in pressure moments for his team, and just ripped on past Yusuf Mohammed, who was really hard to score on during that game. I'm very glad that I wasn't. We weren't reversing them. Rida versus
And
Ikhlas.
Yusuf's a big goalie, so Dawood came in pretty calm and just found a corner. And obviously, we know he's a sniper; he can shoot it with the best of them, and he did that and pretty calm about it. And I mean, at the end of the day, experience won out. But I think it was both series. I think they were very close to call, and play them again over and over again. Any team could come out at any point.
For sure, and Fahad, I know you missed this game, but in a shootout, what is really like your strategy to you know keep the ball out of the net? Like I know some goalies they go for the aggressive poke check, and some they wait for the first move, but what really is your key for as a goalie in that situation?
I mean, I think for me personally, what's worked is being a little aggressive and not biting on the first deke because there's usually always a second one. And if you give them, if you're aggressive and you don't give them a lot to shoot at, they'll try to go for a deke. And if you kind of stay with it, eventually, you can be there. And obviously, with the big equipment and things like that, you can cover a lot of net. So I feel like, but again, if a big time shooter like Dawood comes up, you just hope you get a glove or a blocker on it and hope for the best. But I think Yusuf played it pretty well. I think he was in the right spot. He just got beat, I think, over the shoulder by a great shot.
Yeah,
I
for
do have a
sure.
question for both of you. So, in this case, the refs decided to have both teams shoot at the same time. Do you prefer so? Do you prefer that, or do you prefer one team goes and the other team goes? As a spectator, I prefer just one shot at a time. But as a player in the moment, does that have any impact?
I prefer honestly one player at a time. It also does help with like, for example, nerves. Like when if you're going and you score before you celebrate, you want to turn around and see if the other person scored. It kind of does play into that battle, but I think time wise and I think a lot of leagues do, especially for ball hockey, they do two shots at a time. And yeah, I think I would prefer having one team at a time just so that you know what's at stake versus um going in on a third shot, like if Sani scored and Ikhlas still missed, his goal really wouldn't have counted because it was just
Right.
what was happening. So yeah, I
I think,
think
yeah, sorry. For as a goalie, I think it's a bit more because you can see it with the corner of your eye. There's a play going on across from you, and I think that's a bit more distracting because you're trying to obviously focus on what's in front of you, but sometimes you might catch what's happening behind you, especially if the other person scores before or at the same time the shot comes off and people are cheering, and it kind of throws you off, right? So I think that's been a little tough as a goalie to see it, and then the noise kind of throws you off at the last second a shot might be coming at you.
for sure. And I think honestly, because we were half an hour over our time, I think the refs just wanted to get out and go home at that point. And yeah, now we'd like to kind of highlight the last four goalies standing in in this year's playoffs. So Mobeen, did you kind of want to highlight anyone in particular?
How about I let you talk about your goalie first? I mean,
For
and
sure.
I'll talk about my
So
goalie.
yeah. So we have Yusuf Kapoor for Rida, who I think has not had the best of seasons, primarily because the Rida team was really short bench for a lot of games, and that kind of killed a lot of our games and led to high scoring games. But he has been a solid part of our team and is a reason why we drafted him. I believe the first goalie drafted. And so I think Yusuf's game, while the stats may not show it, he has probably been our most important player other than Zahir, Altaf, and Bully. I think without Yusuf and with any other goalie that are all the other goalies, they're good goalies, they're great, but I think Yusuf has just been that kind of rock for us this season.
I think Yusuf's stock has really risen the last couple of years, I would say. Islam or, Salam Cup, different leagues. He's been winning a lot. He's been doing it very well. And even Islam, I think the last couple of seasons, he's been either in the finals or winning championships, putting up great numbers. A 900 save percentage for him and Khalid Mufti is pretty good for Islam. And again, the goalies who've done it a lot, they'll come through in the playoffs when it really matters. They'll get your team in the playoffs and they'll really come through. And that's what Yusuf did.
Yeah, and just to finish off on Yusuf, he definitely has an aura about him. Even though players won't admit it, you tell by their body language and the way they speak that they're genuinely afraid of going up against Kapoor because they know that they'll have a hard time scoring. I genuinely feel like during that Haya game that he was mentally it was affected them going up against Yusuf because you could see the shots going wide. And I think I call it like when a goalie's playing that well, players try to do a little bit extra, and it ends up being too much. And so yeah, so Yusuf definitely to me out of all these goalies, I would definitely put him as the, the goalie that could change the outcome of a series by himself.
For sure. And yeah, we have next Khalid Mufti for Taqwa, who before Maju dropped or after Maju dropped now has the best save percentage. Out of all goalies, tied with Yusuf. But Mufti has been another big player for Taqwa. this season. And really, there are some moments in the games where it really led to Takwa getting that second place bye. They got the bye by 1 point, and multiple times through the season he saved either games for them or he saved points for them. Particularly against Rida was the last or the second last game of the season. He was a really strong goalie against us. Like we put quite a few shots on him, but nothing was like literally we were at the bench and we were like nothing is working on this guy. So I think like Kapoor Mufti has been playing really, really good this season, and he's been standing on his head for Takwa, through the whole season, and is a big part of their core and success.
Yeah, he's
I will
again
say
obviously.
Mufti is not
Go
very
ahead, go ahead.
conventional. He's very unorthodox, but he gets the job done. He kind of reminds me of Tim Thomas to some extent.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not the
pretty
most
fair.
prettiest of his stance or the way he makes a save, but hey, who really cares about the numbers at the end of the day? Just keep the ball out of the net. And he's definitely, you're right. He's him and Mohib Shah. They definitely turned around that Tuckwa team, and you could tell one. I think it was the last week. My team's locker room was across from the Tuckwa's locker room, and you could see how confident that they were, that they felt that no one could beat them. So and Mufti definitely having a strong goalie does do wonders for your confidence, and I'll be comfortable having like a goalie like Mufti as my goalie for the playoffs as well.
Yeah, Fahad, did you have anything to say?
No, I was just gonna just kind of tag on to what Mubin said was, yeah, Mufti's obviously been around a long time, and he's that unconventional goalie. You think it's going in, then he'll kick a pad out of nowhere, So again, him and Yusuf Kapoor similar or same save percentages. They've built their teams out, and it's gonna be interesting to see how he does in the semifinals now. And I mean, I'm sure for him, it's a little bit it's better to have that week off as well, so he doesn't have to be as tired going into the semifinals.
For sure. And so the next goalie that we'll highlight is actually Arsul Bhatti, who is goalie for Yakin, which also happens to be Mobeen's team. So Arsul during the season was actually picked up, or Sabr had picked up the goalie that Yakin was trying to bring in, Mohammed Mughal, and had given Arsul Bhatti as a replacement for waivers. So Arsul went from bottom to top, and was really now able to play in the postseason because eventually, Sabr did not end up making the playoffs. So, Mobeen, I'm curious, kind of hear your thoughts on your goalie. You've had, I believe, 4 games now with him or 3 games with him. So, yeah.
Yeah, this is gonna be a big playoff season for him in terms of his development. He's actually a relatively younger goalie, both in experience and perhaps age. I think he's probably the I can't tell. It looks like either him or Zafe are a bit younger. This can be a big just to have that experience of the pressure of the playoffs. Like you said, he got a new lease on life coming from Suburb to Yakin. So I'm actually excited to see what he does in this postseason and how he will use his experience to get better. So it's a great opportunity for him to play in this playoff atmosphere. And um, yeah, I'm excited to see where he takes. Hopefully, he takes us all the way. But I'm excited to see how he develops from here. He does have good fundamentals. He's able to he's not scared of the ball. You could tell that some goalies shouldn't be goalies because they're scared of the ball or it goes through them. You don't get that sense with Arsenal. He has a very high level of compete. He wants to, like, you can see that desire. He wants to stop everything. And he's a fiery guy. So um tomorrow on Friday is going to be a good test because the regular season and the playoffs are two different things, and you'll see how he responds to pressure, the playoff pressure, when that time comes.
Yeah, definitely. I think. Oh yeah, no, Fahad. Why don't you
Sorry, I
go
was just gonna.
first? Yeah.
Obviously, I haven't really seen him or Josefa play a lot. I've seen Arsenal play a little bit at Isna. We were actually standing outside watching the games and talking. Goaltending Phaser was there. He was kind of, explaining all his equipment and all these kinds of things to us. But for what I got from that was Arsenal's a real student of the game, and obviously, I think he's still learning the position. And there's nothing better than trial by fire, getting into semifinals and just I think what will help him kind of have some confidence to start is he's got a great team in front of him. They can score goals, so he doesn't have to really stress over any small mistake that might be made because he's got a team that can probably bail him out, and it'll give him a chance to kind of learn on the go and get better as the games go on.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for any goalie, having that Yakin team in front of you, is a big help for sure. Yusuf Siddiqui, his brothers, RC, and the rest of the team really. I think they make it a lot easier, for a goalie because of how much they control the game, they dominate the game, and they really just they pressure teams where that the shots that do get off, a lot of them are just trying to, just so that they don't lose the ball and they're just trying to shoot it on target and they might not be the best of shots. So yeah, for sure. And I'll say one thing, for a team in the finals, if my other team does make it to the finals, I think facing a goalie, I would prefer to face against Arsenal because after he called me out on the podcast and gave me a challenge, I have 3 goals against him. So yeah, let's see if we'll have to play this week first, but
Are you beefing with a
kind of
lot of
looking.
goalies every season? I hear you're kind of beefing with some goalie about goals and how many hat tricks you've had on them.
Yeah, you know what? I think I like to set myself goals on how many goals to score against a couple of goals. Mufti, I think I have quite a few against him too, so I'm hoping maybe get a couple this upcoming Friday. But yeah, moving into the last goalie remaining for Team Isan, it's Josefa Mahida, who I think has had a good season. There have been some games where he looked a bit off, or a couple, 1-2 that he should have had one in. But for the most part, I think he's been a good goalie for Isan, and has gotten them there far as well. In the shootout, he made 2 saves to send them to the semis. And I'm kind of curious to see which Jose Fumihida shows up for the semifinals game against Yakin, because he's going to need to be on his head, and really able to face the shots from Yusuf Siddiqui, and his brothers Ibrahim and Dawood, as well as the rest of the Yakin team, Naeem Shaw as well, unsung hero, leading point scorer for Yakin. He's going to be in front of the net and really looking to get those rebounds, and those tips. And I think it's going to be a real test for both goalies of who can kind of come out on top, in these 2 game series.
I will chime in about Josefa. Is he's one of those goalies where you don't necessarily notice. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. He's just steady. He's just in the position where he needs to be. He makes a save. Um, I know you mentioned that he lets him the odd 1 or 2 bad goals, but which goalie hasn't? It's not a common occurrence from the games that I've seen him play. I'll just say that he doesn't make that flash. What I'm trying to say, he doesn't make that flashy save. That he just in the right position. He makes a save, and you don't notice the contribution to his team because he's just doing his job.
I mean, at the end of the day, in terms of stats, he's right behind the top guys on the screen there. He's got his team to a third place finish in the standings, and a big win in the shootout in the first round and on to the semifinals. So obviously he's earned what he's got, and he's shown up. And bad goals or not, like you said, all goalies have been through that, and now it's up to him because now it's just the final four, and he's got to show up and kind of put all that behind him.
For
And
sure.
Abdullah, correct me if I'm wrong. He actually led. He was part of the Yakin team that won the winter championship. Sorry, 2024.
He was traded, actually.
Oh, he
He
was
was
traded.
traded.
Okay,
Yeah, he was traded from first to last. So it's
yeah.
like
So
reverse
reverse
Arsenal.
Arsenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was traded from first to last, and then ended up missing the playoffs when he went to Tuckwa.
So there you go.
Um,
That might be a story that he's trying to write now.
for sure. So yeah, now we'll move on to highlighting the 2 series coming up, the semifinals, which I think will be just as entertaining, or if not more entertaining, than the quarterfinals. So the first games that we have, 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock, are Rida versus Takwa. This is second place versus fifth place, and this is gonna be, maybe I have a little bit more bias, but this is gonna be probably the series of the night. I think the season series was tied 1-1. We beat Takwa 4-1. Takwa beat us 5-1, and so both teams have put up large numbers against each other. It's just gonna be who's gonna show up for both teams? Is Zahir gonna need to bail out Rida again? Are we gonna get scoring from Altaf and Bully, or secondary scoring from myself? I think I played terrible on last Friday and I got bailed out by my team. But and even for Takwa, is Muhib and Asif gonna be the leaders that they've been all season and really lead their teams? Or are they gonna look for an unsung hero in someone else? But yeah, I'm curious to hear Mobin's thoughts on the series and what do you think will be key for each team.
So even though we could throw the regular season out the window, I mean, I am curious to know, did that victory that you had over Tuckle, was that before the Omar Mahmoud dropout, or was that
Yeah,
after?
that was before, so it's a completely different team.
Right. So I
Yeah,
don't know how much weight you could gain from that, but a win is a win at the end of the day. I will say if Rida gives up the same quality chances that they gave Haya last Friday, then you might be in a lot of trouble. This is a deadlier offensive team than Haya was. Haya's a lot better defensively, but you have the top scorer in Muhi on this team, and so if Rida does give up those quality chances, this series might be done in game one because I think they'll just demoralize Rida. They'll just demoralize Rida that they'll feel that they won't have a chance in game two. But if Rida is able to replicate what they did against Haya, able to come out with at least a tie or a win, that changes the whole complexion of this series. Because now it puts doubt in Tukwa, the same doubt that Haya had last Friday.
for
Yeah, and I
sure.
mean, just obviously haven't seen Takwa play yet, but just looking at who they've got on the team, it seems pretty stacked, and I can see why they're a second place finish right behind the top seed Yakin. And obviously, Mohib's had a really big season. Asif Bika can score for with the best of them. Casantini's been great. It'll be a pretty good goaltending battle as well with two veteran, long time ice slammers. I think this will come down to if Rida can play their defensive game like they did in the first on the first day, and Yusuf might have to build him out again. Especially if they can. And I think where Takwa might get in trouble is if Rida can sneak out another tie or something like that from the first game. Then if Yusuf gets hot in the second game like he did this past week, then anything can happen. Even just a 1-0 win might be enough, or a shootout overtime win might be enough. So I think Takwa has to really go after them and not make the same mistake Haya did by letting Rida come back in the second half, especially if Rida's a second half team, like people say. And Takwa has to keep pressing it on them, and Rida has to play the game they did and just be more defensively sound.
For
I will
sure.
add that I will add that for me,
Yes.
Tukwa has many paths to victory in the series, from goaltending to scoring. I would say that if Rida plays their cards smartly, they match up properly against, like, they know who the scorers are. If they match up defensively against Tukwa's top scorers and make Yusuf Kapoor's life as easy as possible, um, they're able to come out and advance to the final. So it depends on the strategy that Rhythm deploys. If they're going to try to go back and forth and exchange chances, they're just going to run out of steam against Tuckwa. If they're more strategic and as Fahad was saying, if they try to shut down the appropriate guys on Tuckwa and let kind of ride that Kapoor wave, they might be riding that wave all the way to the finals.
For sure. I
The one
think
thing
us heading into this game. Sorry. You can go. Sorry. I don't know. Of course.
Oh, my bad. I just wanted to just add on one more thing was that I know for your team when I was watching against Haya, because there's more of a defensive game, not a lot of back and forth run and gun. But I noticed Altaf and Bulbulia were out a lot. Like then they played very well, but they were out. Seemed like a lot of the game. With a team with so much offensive power like Takwa, and if they're gonna be coming at you in waves, can you afford to have those guys playing so many minutes and potentially tiring them out? So that's just one thing I was noticing against Haya.
Yeah, I agree. For us against Haya, we were trying to line match as much as possible. When you saw Maz come out, Suf come out on that first line, Altaf and Bully were definitely, kind of the first ones to come out and really line match. And I think that's also what helped us contain Maz to the extent that we did, where we held him scoreless, in the series. And so I think, knowing we know their guys, Muhib, Asif, Ryan Kwaja, Kesentini in front of the net. I think we are going to have to do exactly what we did, if not more, kind of going in, and I do think this series will go to overtime. Like I think that's my prediction. I think instead of having ties both games, I think one team will win the first game, the other team will win the second game, and and then overtime will be overtime. But I think that kind of will be the story of this, just because of how maybe I'm a little biased towards Rhythm. Maybe you guys think we'll get blown up both games. It's possible. I think it can happen, but I think we have had moments of magic this season, and I think both teams will be kind of out there and leaving it all. And with that, we'll move into the
I
second
do no, actually, before you move
series
on, I do have a question for Fahad, and it could apply to this series as well. But if you just go back one slide,
for
Abdullah.
sure. No worries.
Um, I know you haven't seen Tuckwell, but they've actually been on a roll. They've won like 6, 7 games in a row.
Mhm.
They haven't tasted defeat in like 2 months. However, they they stopped playing because they had a bye last week. Do you think that has helped Tuckwa? Like, or are we making a big deal out of nothing? Did they potentially lose momentum? Because on the flip side, Rida came up with a huge victory against Haya, and they kind of have more of a momentum than what Tuckwa has because they didn't play. So I'm just interested in hearing your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it can have an impact because Rida will know, like you said, they'll be pretty motivated and they're feeling good about themselves right now because they beat a pretty favorite team in Haya in past week. So they'll be feeling good about themselves. But if Takwa can sort of again slow them down a little bit right at the beginning, it might take the sales away from Rida. But again, I think Rida will come out pretty strong, and I think it might come down to goaltending and a lot of series, like a lot of series do, because Khalid Mufti's been there, he's done a lot, and if he can sort of put Rida. Uh, Obviously, like prevent some goals right off the beginning. Don't let Rida get on a roll and momentum. Then I think Takwa will settle back in maybe by the second period of the first game, and then they probably just play their game the way they want to play.
Yeah, and I think Fahad, we had the bye actually when we ended up winning, so the bye didn't really affect us that much. But I think it can play be a factor for some teams. But I think Takwa is good enough where they'll be able to get up and running right away. And I don't think it'll hurt them too much, just because Muhib, Asif, they've been playing in other leagues, regularly. I actually played Muhib on Sunday, so I think they'll be fresh. So moving into the next series, Ihsan versus Yakin. As you all know, Yakin was the first place team. They chose to play Ihsan, who was the third place team in the regular season. And in the season series, Yakin had the two. They won both games against Ihsan pretty comfortably. So, Mubin, I'm just curious to hear. First of all, was there any chatter in the league, in the team chat, and was there any input from the team to the GMs, or was this a decision that the GMs made, without consulting?
I mean, some guys chimed in, but for the most part, based on how the regular season turned out, it was we kind of had a feeling that the decision would be a sign. We won both games against them. We lost the one game against Tuckwa, and we tied the season series against Rida, where Rida won. Sorry, we won. We won one game
One
against
and
Rida, and we
tied.
tied one. But the tied even felt like a loss because we're not used to having teams score four, put up four on us, and Rida came back. So, and also, I know we talked about him a lot, but there's a Kapora factor. You don't want to run into a hot goalie. I mean, a hot goalie changes. It's like a hot pitcher during baseball. Like they could change the outcome of the entire series. So Rida was an option, and Tuck just been on a tear. You want to see them in the finals as opposed to seeing them in the semifinals. So it just, I know you can't base everything on the regular season, but that's all we have to make a decision. And the fact that um Eclas, the last team to qualify for the playoffs, they kind of pushed Isan to the limit. So we felt that overall, even though Isan has a star-studded starting lineup, we feel that we have the advantage in depth, and we're kind of hoping that advantage leads us to the finals.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I had a feeling it was going to be Hassan. Just speaking to the GMs on the side, it was like, um, it would be a lot cooler to see the younger Greenbird score versus the older Greenbird score. And that's exactly what we got treated to here in the semifinals. I think the key for both teams will be just how quickly they can adjust and bounce back. Ihsan was behind in both games last week, and they didn't panic. They adjusted and they got back, relatively comfortably. And I think the thing for Yakin is now that it's playoff time, do or die. Ihsan is just going to be trying that much harder, especially now that they know that they've lost both games in the regular season. Um, and the thing for Yakin is just don't take Ihsan lightly at all. Forget the regular season. But I do think this will be an absolute. I think this will be a high scoring affair both games. I think we're looking at 3-2, 4-3. Something like that. And then, and this potentially could go to overtime and a shootout as well.
Yeah, I
But
agree. Yeah, go
one
on, Mohammed.
interesting thing, sorry, Fud, I'll let you chime. One interesting thing is these two teams actually made a trade post draft,
Post draft right before the season,
right?
yeah.
So would this kind of be the tiebreaker to determine who won that trade? Fahad, if you don't know, I'll let Abdullah explain the trade.
Yeah, for sure. So Ihsan actually drafted both of Yusuf Siddiqui's brothers in the second and third round. So Dawood Siddiqui and Ibrahim Siddiqui.
Mm.
And then Yakin drafted Rizwan Khalil and Farouk Sani in the second and third. And so it was a second and third pick swap for both teams. So Sani and Riz went to Ihsan, and the Siddiqui brothers reunited on Yakin. And one thing about the Siddiqui brothers, they have like 40 points between them. I think looking at their stats, it's like 17, 16, and 15. It's like each brother just went off the season, passing to each other, scoring. And yeah, it was a really, really fun thing to see. Definitely not fun when you're versing them, but uh, you know, it's really cool to see kind of the chemistry that the brothers have developed, since they were kids. In one of the Player of the Week videos, Ibrahim showed like them playing on the street. But yeah, it was a really kind of fun thing. But yeah, Fahad, you kind of wanted to chime in on this
I was just
series.
gonna say, like, just for what you said about them putting up big stats to the guys on Yakin, and it seems like overall a lot of guys nowadays, a different season, are putting up big numbers, and these guys are carrying on the tradition. With Hassan, they've got the veteran guys on their team, a lot of them, and I'm sure even now they're just planning on how to stop this high-powered offense. And it'll come down to like experience and I think just some of the younger guys and see how they perform under the spotlight. I'm interested to see how the goaltending will play out. Both maybe a little inexperienced in these kinds of big game situations, like the top teams. So that'll be fun to see. So I do agree. I think it might be a high scoring game, high scoring series, but let's see how it goes. It'll be fun to see.
For sure. And yeah, with that, we'll just get a quick look at the playoff bracket. So, the winner of Yakin and Nissan will play in the championship game versus the winner of Takwa or Rida. So, yeah, it will be very, very exciting to see. Do we have a prediction from Fahad? You're unbiased. Your brother's out of the playoffs. Mobeen and me
Yeah.
are both playing. So, do we have a prediction from you?
I mean, I not having seen Takwa, but just seeing who they have on the team, I think I'll go with Takwa to advance from
Oh
their
man,
Oh
series.
man, Abdullah's not going to invite you back on the podcast.
yeah, you're
You asked
canceled
for it,
now.
man. You asked the question, and I
Cancel
mean, again,
culture.
I haven't seen these teams, so it's tough to say. But I obviously Yakin with the way they've played all season, if they continue that, I think they come out on top. But I wouldn't count Hassan out with. I mean, for both games, I think Yusuf Kapoor is going to have a big series, and again, I would not be surprised if he stole games 1-0, 2-1 kind of thing. But I have a lot of friends on Hassan, Daoud, Farouk, Usman, all these guys. So again, yeah, I think Yakin has the firepower and they've proven it all season. But let's see how that goes.
For sure. And I think, this, yeah, I think if you guys are watching and you're not playing, still come out because, this is going to be a really, really fun two series. And yeah,
Actually,
with that,
last Friday, it was really fun watching what because the games were so tight. It was really fun, and just hanging out with
yeah,
the brothers in general as well.
For sure.
for sure. And yeah, with that, I'd like to just give another small reminder to the winter season. Please sign up if you haven't already done so. Your registration is only complete once you receive your payment. There are very, very limited spots remaining. So please sign up if you haven't done so. If you're waiting, just fill out the form, send your payment in, and then make your decision after. But yeah, guys, just sign up because once they're full, there's no guarantee of being let in if someone else shops. So and yeah, with that, I'd like to kind of wrap up the episode. Jazakallah, Fahad, for taking time out to
Of course.
join us and give your thoughts, and Jazakallah to Mobeen for coming on the podcast this week. Um, yeah. Any final thoughts, last word before this semifinals or before anything?
No, I mean, thanks for having me on. It was a blast, and best of luck to all the guys playing on Friday. Inshallah, it'll be a great battle, and stay safe, inshallah.
For sure. And
I
Mobeen?
would say the same thing. Do come out, because if the quarterfinals is of any indication, really any of these teams who made the playoffs can win the championship. Obviously, you know where my where my bias lies towards, but like, if I had to take myself aside, just looking at any of these teams, it's a super competitive season, super fun, and the games are really entertaining to watch.
For sure. Yeah, and we're looking forward to it. So yeah, with that, I'd like to end the podcast with